Lohman steps around, bends at goalward, and slots it through.
He kicks it long. Hipwood in front. Billings to spoil. Oliver, hair pass stolen. Picked his pockets and put it through. Cameron, magnificent.
Here's his knock, almost good. Here's his chance. Logan Morris. Welcome to the big time. First goal in AFL footy. His birthday this week. Happy birthday to you.
McCarthy, bending ball. He's got it. I don't think Legalier got there in time.
Winner for the Brisbane Lions. McKenna to half forward.
The Brisbane Lions Fancast is back for the bye round, thanks to hop on brewerytours.com.au and Crisp Communications. A bit of a slow week in the world of football for the Brisbane Lions, although there still has been a few things happening here and there. We've had a mid-season draft. The AFLW fixture has been released. There's some trade rumours floating around. There's bits and pieces, but we are definitely looking forward to getting back playing footy, that's for sure. I think. I say that now. This time next week, I might say bring back the bye. Who knows? That's the way things have been going in 2024. We are back to have a little bit of a look at the first half of the season. We'll give you the leader so far of our votes. You've got a pretty a big sort of deep dive you want to take on the season so far and where you can draw comparisons to another ill-fated season.
Oh, God. Deep dive. I said it was a shallow dive. We had a whole thing about that. It was the shallowest of dives. It's the deep dive with the depth of a contact lens. Yeah. Some might say.
Some might say that. We're going to do that anyway. We're going to have a look across to this Bulldogs game, which after their win on Friday is looking a little bit more daunting than it has. Although they did come away with a few injuries and a few suspensions. So that is even the ledger a little bit. We will get to that. We'll look at the changes. We'll do it all. But Patrick, you're back for another week with your shallowest of dives on the way for you very shortly. 2024. It's certainly not what we've expected, is it?
No, absolutely not. It's been terrible.
4.5 wins, 6 losses. Some of the wins have been really good. The Gold Coast win, the Melbourne win, bloody good. The Richmond win was lots of fun. But in amongst all that has been some very, very disappointing losses. Very disappointing losses.
I would hazard a guess to say the first quarter was possibly the greatest quarter of football we've ever played of the season. And then it peaked pretty quick.
Yes, certainly.
And not even peaked, but it peaked and then actually did a deep dive.
In amongst all that, of course, we've had a few bloody injuries as well. Some seriously long-term ones. Duday out with another knee. Coleman out with a knee. Gardner and McCarthy out with knees. And then there's been other little niggling injuries as well. McKenna, Bailey, Starcevic. Just those medium-term injuries that have really just rocked the boat more than we'd hoped to at this point.
You're forgetting the ever-injured Carter Michael.
Yeah, I did forget him. You're right, but I think he's due to be back on the roster soon.
I just think he's a permanent fixture on the injury list. To be perfectly honest, every time you check, it's like, see Michael, and you're like, didn't that guy score a really good goal against Essendon once about 3 years ago or something?
He did. That's right.
That's all I remember about him. And can you blame me?
Yeah, fair enough. It's certainly, when we entered this season as premiership favourites in a lot of people's eyes, we didn't expect to be sitting here at the bye weekend, sitting 13th on the ladder, fresh off a pretty devastating loss to the Hawks. So, time to recalibrate, see what we've got for the rest of the season, which is just around the corner and is looking more and more daunting as well, with another trip to Perth, another trip to Adelaide. Yeah, there's still plenty to look forward to and also be frightened of.
We're in trouble.
No,
I mean, we're vastly in trouble. We're not so much in trouble as we've been in trouble and we're now in jail. And now we're awaiting our sentence to prison. So
I think there will be some surprise wins along the way. You know, I think we're just as likely to beat Melbourne and potentially even Sydney at the Gabba as well. Depending on where Essendon's at by the time we play them in the last round, that could be a win. We've got an away
toast.
We've got an away game at the MCG against Collingwood in the second to last round as well. Who knows what that's going to throw up? We've got a couple of games against St Kilda. Another one against the Gold Coast, and then you throw in both the Adelaide teams in there as well, and West Coast. It's you know, if we pretend we're starting again, if we can walk away, you know what, 7-4 or something like that, I think you'd probably mark that down as somewhat of a success, and we might even be enough to get us into finals.
What if we win every game? Just go on an unholy run.
That would be
11 and zip. I'm
Sure.
tipping them. Lock it in. 11 games in a row.
okay. I'll
If anyone, you know, I only have to get it wrong once, but that's what I'm tipping because it's funny.
I'm here for it. That's for sure. If we go undefeated, it'd be like a Bulldogs run 2016 sort of thing. We will get Will Ashcroft back in the next few weeks. Starcevic is due back as well. Not that that's going to make up for a whole lot, but we've got some new players on the roster as well that potentially going to get some senior game time. You never know.
That's a good point, and probably not a bad segue. So, I don't even really know what the mid-season draft is because, have we ever utilized it? Is it that thing that we got Tom Rockcliffe from that time, or was that the rookie draft?
That was the rookie
Too
draft.
many drafts. What's even going on? Tell me more. Who are these fellas? I think there was someone from Geelong Falcons and someone maybe from WA. So, give me the goss.
Well, I mean, you're half right there. Well, 2/3 of the way right there. Will McLaughlin was our first pick. I think we were pick 6 by the time our first pick came around. He's coming from the Geelong Falcons. He's sort of your hybrid forward, 185 centimetres, so he's not exactly a small forward. We've drafted to fill the holes that we've got. So we've got a hybrid forward, a small forward, and a rebounding defender. So Will McLaughlin was our first pick from Geelong Falcons. Sort of plays like an Ollie Henry type. I've heard him compared to. Luke Beacon from the Sandful from Woodville West Torrens. He's your rebounding defender, quite quick. He's won a Sandful premiership. He's played in state league teams as well. So,
What was his name? Sorry,
Luke Beacon.
Beacon.
Yeah.
Could he be the beacon of hope?
He certainly could be, and I think of the three, he's probably the most likely to get a senior game. He's a little bit older. I think he's about 23 or something, so he's been around for a minute. And our last one, Darcy Craven, coming from East Perth. He's our small forward, 175 centimetres, so there's not a lot of Darcy Craven, but big raps on this guy as well as a small forward, uses the ball well, and obviously can put through a few goals, so... Who knows?
Let's hope he's not a Craven. Craven by name, Craven not by nature.
So those are the latest. I think they all go on rookie contracts. And to answer your question before, I think Caitlin Lane was a mid-season draft. I don't know that we've had any other mid-season draft picks, and I could be wrong on that in that respect. But yeah, Caitlin Lane was the mid-season draft pick, and he's been around for 2 or 3 years yet without busting into the senior side. But as I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, he's putting together a decent season in the two. So maybe. But you never know with the injuries that are happening so far, not just to us this year. There's a bunch of teams that are going through it at the moment. So they'll certainly be playing VFL because that list is getting stretched as it is.
Yeah. Oh, God. There's a lot going on in terms of just injuries across the season and across teams and whatever. And it's like, I guess because we've had them all, we're liable to laugh. But there's a certain level of, come on, game, sort it out.
Yeah.
Can you stop?
Definitely.
I think a lot of people would say, like, when your team's not playing very well, you like to watch good players playing. And when good players aren't playing because they're injured, it's less fun. So
Very much so.
did the VFL play on the weekend?
No. So no footy to talk about whatsoever when it comes to the Brisbane Lions. And I think that's probably... They must schedule the buys the same, and the VFL's already had a couple of buys. but they must schedule the buys the same so that we can't stack the VFL team full of AFL listed players and just walk away with an easy win against teams that don't necessarily have an AFL team affiliated with them. That's my guess. I could be wrong. It might just be a scheduled buy.
Why the hell would they even... Why would anyone do that?
I'm sure someone would.
Yeah, that just seems really petty.
Yep.
Like, unnecessarily so. The kind of thing that Melbourne would do.
Well, they're in worlds of hurt of their own after getting their pants pulled down by Freo today, which was bloody fun to watch as well. Yeah, but look, with all the injuries, it means we've been able to debut a few players that we certainly wouldn't have expected at the start of the year as well. Shadow Brains had 2 quarters of footy. Bruce Revels had, 3-4 games now? Gold Coast he started? 1, 2... he started the Gold Coast game?
Yeah.
Yep. So he's had 4 games under his belt now as well. Logan Morris also has got 4 games under his belt.
More or less started that Gold Coast game. So.
Yes. Harry Sharp's got a few more games under his belt now as well. And Kai Loman's probably the big one that has played every game this year in some respect, whether it be as the sub or playing full games. And he's come along in leaps and bounds, especially in the last month or so. So it has been good to get exposure to those guys and build a little bit of list depth, because it's probably been one of the bigger questions about the Lions over the last few years is, we've had a good run with injuries over the last 5 years and been competing, but, is the depth really there? So it's good to expose some of those guys to senior level footy.
Do you reckon with Harley Reid being suspended and the other fella, the guy who's Darcy,
yeah,
he also being suspended, and they probably were 2 of the favourites for the Rising Star?
Oh, you'd have to say so, yeah.
Kai Loman in with the shout? What do you reckon?
Well, his odds have definitely increased, that's for sure. And if he puts together a really good back half of the season, then who knows? Yeah.
To go from having not even remembered he was eligible to then kind of him being in actually not bad stead, given the fact that barring any injury, he'll play all of the games.
Yeah, I wonder if Ashcroft's eligible as well for at least another nomination in the back half of this season. I don't know if he played the right amount of games or whatever, because I know you can get nominated twice. Witherden got nominated twice in his first 2 years because he didn't play.
Famously.
Yeah.
I think it's 10 games.
Okay.
So I don't think Ashcroft is eligible, but yeah, I believe it's 10 games and then maybe under 20.
Yeah, sure.
So, and it might even be starting games, not so much sub, but that would be nice, but I don't think it's going to happen because I think he's played too many games. So also he looks like a 200 gamer anyway. So why bother? Give it to the little weird fella that is cropping up on commercials and ads and stuff now, where you're like, why is he there?
All right. Well, for the first half of the season, I want a best win and a worst loss.
Worst loss?
Yeah. Because there's been a couple.
Yes, there has. There's been some awful losses. Best win. That's also pretty tough. There's only really been 2 that have mattered, isn't there?
I suppose.
The Melbourne one was good, but I think I probably am going to say I just... the Gold Coast one just was so... It was satisfying in the sense that, we actually kind of did what we needed to do throughout, and it was against the odds. And there was some funny sort of weird oddities that happened in that one. Whereas the Melbourne one was kind of yeah, hate Melbourne, and we beat them. But then we let them kick 6 goals in the last quarter. So, had that last quarter not gone down, I would have said Melbourne. But I'll say the Gold Coast game. And the worst win is... You do your favourite one, and I'll think about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, not much to choose from, so I will lock in the Melbourne one as I think, the best win. Down at the MCG, which has obviously been a talking point for the Lions for quite a while, against a team that we're building a very healthy rivalry with over the last sort of 3 or 4 years as well in Melbourne. There's some genuine angst and spice between those two teams now, so to get a win that felt as you said, it only ended up being 22 points or something, but it felt like a 10-goal win at the time. It was a genuine, complete performance. So yeah, for me, that probably goes down as the best win.
The worst one I'm tossing up between the Carlton game and the GWS game, and I don't know whether I can divide. I feel like the Carlton game could have just started them off in not a great way, and I don't think we would have probably lost the next two if we hadn't lost that Carlton game. So
yeah, it's a tough one.
Momentum's a funny one, so I'm going to say the opening round.
Yeah, it was disappointing for different reasons to say other games have been. Like the Freo game was really disappointing because it was one of those really lacked any sort of harder effort. GWS, the first half was okay, and then the second half was probably the worst half of footy I've seen from us in a long way. And then the Hawthorn game was probably just as bad as the Freo one in many respects as well. That's a game that you just you really expect to walk in, and especially after the history with us against Hawthorn, especially after what happened to them the week before against Port Adelaide, just to show up like that was really, really disappointing. So, yeah, those three are hard to split, but GWS, that one seemed like the most devastating at the time.
Yeah, I think it was just GWS kind of showed us everything that we needed to be doing that we weren't doing. And it was kind of just what? Are we supposed to be really talented?
It was
also really fit? What's going on?
It was really disappointing after that as well because they shat the bed, for the next 3 or 4 games after that. And Geelong, since we've played them as well, have been pretty average. On the flip side, since we've played Richmond, they've been competitive against Essendon and Geelong. So that's a bit of an anomaly in itself. So yeah, it's just been a weird sort of ebbs and flows this season. Like a really obviously disappointing start to the season of 0-3, and then we smack North, and you're not quite prepared to say, "Oh, we're back," because it's North. Then you beat Melbourne down the MCG, and then you sort of go, "All right, this is the Brisbane we know and love." Then to come back to the Gabba and not adjust to wet weather footy whatsoever.
No, that Geelong game was also terrible because I think there's been so many examples, not so much of us being completely. I mean, I think that's the one with the Giants game, is we were completely outplayed in every facet. Whereas the Geelong one, there's arguments to be made that we kind of threw that, and just dumb shit where you're like, we'd lost that game so poorly, irrespective. It could have been you playing, and probably you would have got the chocolates on that night. So, yeah, it's frustrating because it looks like to be not performing, and then also to be actively anti yourself is so weird, and it's something we haven't had to deal with for quite a while. So, are we spoiled? Possibly. I want to continue being spoiled, to be perfectly frank.
Yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it? And then, of course, there was a draw in amongst all that as well against Adelaide, which is, I don't know, it's just a weird one.
It was a good game of football.
And it was one of those draws that felt like a win. They often say there's draws that feel like a win and draws that feel like a loss. I think that was a draw that felt like a win, if I had to...
Well, I'll tell you what, if you told us midway through the last quarter we'd be drawing, it would have felt well and truly like a loss, given we were about 3 goals up.
Yeah.
But yeah, with 5 minutes to go, yeah, I'll take that draw for sure. So it was just a bit, oh man, this season has been absolutely cooked, eh?
It has been a real test of emotion, hasn't it, in all sorts of ways. Like, I've felt pretty good at times, obviously after some of the wins we've spoken about, and I felt downright pretty shit after some of those losses. Like when we went 0-3 against Collingwood, that was pretty bad. The GWS loss was fairly bad as well, and then Hawthorn to give you some sour taste in the mouth to chew on for the last week and a bit during the bye.
So Hawthorn, the one that we did the podcast straight after, there was one where we did and it was not good. Might have been the GWS one.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that was not fun times because I think we were supposed to do it on the Monday, and we did it on the Friday morning, and I just hadn't had time to properly process my emotions like some sort of child. And it was an insane rambling mess, more so than normal. But I think if you look back in terms of a comedy, it's kind of an interesting season in that regard.
Sure.
But we don't want to be looking back at it as a comedy. We want to be looking at it as a success story, which it isn't, and probably won't be. And
Certainly not this year, anyway.
no, but it could be like this weird little lull in the middle where you're like, what the hell happened then? And it's like, oh, some stuff happened in Nashville, and then they all got injured, and it's like, oh, cool. Wow, that's pretty weird. Who likes that? Probably no one. No one's going to remember this season.
No, and unless it becomes just a small chapter in the bigger story, then no, probably no one will. They might refer to it in a few years' time when another team is having a down year. Oh, look what happened to Brisbane before they bounce back. So maybe. But
Is this like the second act of a trilogy? The Empire Strikes Back. You know, Luke's hands cut off. Han Solo's frozen in carbonite, and looks like everything is all shit. Could it be that?
okay, well, who's Jabba the Hutt in this reference?
He's not in that film.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm not really a Star Wars guy.
Yeah, well, don't ask dumb questions then.
Fine, mate.
And also, obviously, Jabba the Hutt is like BT or someone like that. You know, like why not?
Why not, indeed. All right, well, what we are going to do right now is have a look at the leaderboard for the Hop On Brewery Tours voting system.
I just want to make it clear that was not a weight-based joke. It was based on the inability to understand them.
Okay,
Yes, just want to make that abundantly clear.
sure. Thanks to hoponbrewerytours.com.au. Book yourself a half or a full day tour across Brisbane and the Gold Coast. Craft breweries with Matt and Joss. Bloody good stuff. Bloody good fun. Organise a Bucks party or a team building exercise. Whatever it is, do it with Hop On Brewery Tours. All right. How do you want to do this? You want me to do a top 3, a top 5, or just like notable mentions until we get to our leader?
5 seems... I already know 2 of them, so I would like to hear 3 more.
Okay.
And I'm sure everyone else would like to hear 5.
All right, well, at this stage, tied on 10 votes, Zorko and Harris Andrews. I thought Zorko would have polled more by now, to be honest, because we've both said he's probably leading the actual BNF.
Yeah, but you're forgetting that I never vote for him.
Yes.
So it's a
Yes,
I'm
I'm
going to
just
say like a loaded question or a loaded gun. Is it 10 votes from you?
I am certainly doing the heavy lifting when it comes to voting for Dane Zorko. 8 out of 10 votes are from me. I thought Harris would probably have a few more as well, to be fair. Froggy Lester on 11. Josh Dunkley on 12. Jared Berry on 14. And
That's all coming from me, isn't it? Except for your 1, 3 or whatever.
yeah, I've only got 6 of those 14.
That's still a lot of votes.
Yeah, he had 2 3-vote games from me, including the last one against Hawks. And because the man just racks up 3 votes for fun, not just here, but in the actual voting system, Lockie Neal's out on 21 votes. Which, I said to you off air, it's a bit
mind-boggling.
It's a bit disappointing that we're just sort of voting for Lockie Neal, but it's like his good games are really good, where it's hard not to give him the 3, and so it's easy for him to just get 6 votes like that. Which is exactly what's happened. He's had 2 6-vote games and a few 2-vote games from both of us. So when he's good, and I think that's what happened last year and why he walked away with the Brownlow, because he just racks up 3 votes.
So any notable not mentions? Any votes? Like
Clug's got 7. Rayner's got about 5 or 6. Noah Answorth's got 6. Kai Lohman has polled in the last couple of games.
but like no Charlie Cameron, not much Joe Danaher.
Danaher has 7 votes as well. He
probably got 6 of them from the North Melbourne game, right?
Correct. And then 1 against Freo.
And Rayner probably got 5 or 6 from the Melbourne game. So
Correct.
What a bunch of bastards.
Payne's got a couple. Archie's got, the odd vote here or there, as has Darcy Wilmot. Oscar's got a couple, but yeah, not much more to really talk about there.
No love for McKenna.
No. No love for McKenna. No. Hopefully he can turn around his season as well. So he was off with a hamstring for the first 6 weeks or so.
I think he's been off all season with his hamstring, to
Yeah,
be
more or
perfectly
less,
honest.
yeah.
But... well, that's a terrible midpoint, but hopefully, I mean, they'll obviously be the same number of votes, but hopefully they're allocated slightly differently.
Yeah, hopefully we can spread them around a little bit more, and it's just hopefully we'll see the likes of Zach Bailey in the votes a little bit more, and McCluggage get a few more votes, because after the North game he hasn't polled a single vote from either of us.
Yeah, that's pretty... For someone that's trying to, renegotiate and stuff, he's not exactly covering himself in glory, is he?
No, but he is set to sign a 7-year deal for $1 million at the Brisbane Lions. So that's exciting news. I guess at the start of the year, it was sort of on watch of, should we be worried that he hasn't signed a contract yet? And we said if we get to the bye and he still hasn't signed, then it's probably a time to worry. And technically, we're at the bye and he hasn't signed, but
It's only time to start worrying now.
Well, I mean, the news coming out is that it's basically done at this point. So it's just a formality now. Berry is still weighing up a 4-year deal from us, and then entertaining a deal from Essendon as an option as well. So the only other big name player that's out of contracts at the end of the year is Link McCarthy, who's got all the time in the world to think about what he wants to do now in terms of that. And I guess Charlie Cameron's been in the news over the last 2 weeks as well about potentially looking elsewhere. It started with maybe Carlton could use someone like Charlie Cameron, and then, maybe Essendon could use someone like Charlie Cameron. Now Freo is the name that's been thrown up as well. So, and I think a lot of that is speculation here. So he's still got another year left. But obviously his form for 2024, and I guess because his name's been attached to the whole off-season thing, people might be asking the question of him. So we'll wait and see on that one. But, fingers crossed. If nothing else, he's not having the greatest year, Charlie Cameron, but across the last 5 years, he's in the top 5 for goal scorers. He puts asses on seats. He's worth so much money in marketing dollars. And if you go to any kid at a Lions game and say, who's your favourite player, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say Charlie Cameron. So he's worth a lot more to the club than just, hearing John Denver on the weekend as well. So hopefully we can hold on to him.
It would have been an interesting conversation if you said, I know our thing kind of doesn't really, our best, whatever. What is it? Is yours the JB? Is the season one? We're not going to have a Paddy this year at this rate, so whatever. The JB, the coveted JB. If you'd said that Jared Berry would be, more up to, far ahead of McCluggage,
yeah,
in the votes at this point in the season, given that both of them are free agents, people would have laughed at you and me, probably more me. You would have laughed at me. I would have laughed at, yeah. So I think there would have been a lot of laughter heading in whomever's direction that would have said it, which it would have been me if it was anybody, because, whatever. But kind of funny, really, if you consider it, the weight of expectation and that sort of thing. Well, it almost feels weird.
It's also been a nice byproduct of having to blood these kids, of particularly Bruce and Harry Sharp getting more game time. It means that Bruce, Harry Sharp and Jasper Fletcher are all sharing wing time. It means Jared Berry has been moved into the middle and playing his best footy. No coincidence there. Everyone says he plays his best footy in the middle, and now that it's been facilitated out of necessity, look what's happening.
Well, ironically as well, is McCluggage probably played his best footy on the wing back in 2020, 2021, when him and Mitch Robinson were sharing wing time. So I don't know, it's a bit weird. Wingman can be pretty impactful. You look at Goulden, what Gaff did over large portions of his career and stuff like that. Pretty important.
Yeah, not arguing with that at all. Whereas Jasper Fletcher's had a bit of an interesting year. He's sort of not done anything wrong, but not impacted games in the way he did last year as well. He's just being, I guess, a solid footballer without really pushing the boat out and making people take notice. And I guess that's probably a good thing. It means he's probably just playing his role.
I think there's probably an element of him playing his role. I think I mentioned last week that he does a lot of reliable defensive stuff that I think probably will bode well heading forward. So it might just be the sort of thing where, you know, I think we had a question about who has improved within the team, and I mentioned it's not linear, particularly with some of the young guys. And you know, we have had quite a few young guys previously, and we've got a lot more now. So the improvement's not going to be linear, and it never normally is. Only if you're an absolute freak monkey that sort of stuff does happen. But with our guys, you're looking at it being more like a stabilization for a period of time where they're just solid, and then they might, you know, metaphorically level up. And here's hoping that they do.
He's hoping. Well, I guess there's a few players that you'd hope have had a serious think across the last week and a bit, across the bye, to think how they want to attack the last half of the season, because we've spoken about it, everyone's spoken about it. There's a few players really down on form and downright disappointing from I guess some fans' perspectives. I guess the names Hipwood, Charlie Cameron and Rayner are the ones that really scream out because we expect so much more of them. Bailey has had a down year as well. Although he was pretty good against the Hawks, he had a few moments, and he's been injured for a big portion of it as well. So I'm prepared to give him a bit of an out there. But I guess there's just a few players that we'd hoped would lift that little bit more that really haven't, and have in fact gone backwards. So hopefully, whatever's happened over the last couple of weeks, they've all got together and decided what it is that they want from the back half of the year, and whether that is to, try and scrap and make 7th or 8th position, and then try and make a good tilt at some sort of very unlikely flag from that position, or if they want to experiment with strategy and game style and positional changes and all that sort of stuff. I think I was listening to the Monday Means test after the Hawthorn game, and Kingy said, I just want them to play free for a 4-week block. Finals is potentially out of the question here. Time to shake things up and just go out and play with a bit of freedom and see what that produces, and go back to, that sort of 2019 style where we were playing entertaining footy, and, we weren't necessarily getting all the wins or, being a genuine finals premiership threat, although we did end up finishing second on the ladder. But everyone sort of had the same thought process of, I really like watching Brisbane play, the way they move the ball, and they're going up the corridor, and it's just playing with freedom. So, I sort of agreed with Kingy on that, and I don't say that very often, but just lift the shackles a little bit and give them a little bit more ownership and freedom, and see what we can see.
Yeah, it does sort of feel like they're playing under duress, like, generally speaking. There's almost like a hesitancy or like a worry to make mistakes. And yeah, it is kind of, the team isn't there.
No.
So, David King with a decent take, seemingly. He probably had his PR guy be like, stop telling them that they just need to get Chris Scott, you absolute hack job. So, and somehow between Sunday and Monday morning, the rhetoric changed from him. So, not only flies buzzing around his brain, some thoughts, seemingly. Yeah. So, well done him.
But we will see what the back half of the year brings, and whether players can pull their finger out and lift. Where we fit Ashcroft into that midfield mix. Does that come at the expense of Jared Berry playing more inside time? Probably, because he's not going to be shoving out Dunkley or Neal and nor McCluggage, really. So who knows?
Yeah, well, I mean, he went straight in there at the beginning of his career. So, and he was pretty much a fixture in there. It's interesting you're talking about, like, you would have hoped that, like, Neal would have sustained. I think Neal hasn't been as good this year as he was last year. No. Similarly with Dunkley, I think Dunkley's dropped off a tiny bit. And it's just like, yeah, you want those guys to be maintaining and other guys to lift it. But what can you do?
No, it's obviously a very hard sport, and very hard to keep showing up year after year, especially when we've been up for so long. So hopefully this is just a blip, like we're all sort of thinking and hoping that this is an aberration, and then next year it'll be business as normal. We'll have a longer preseason, fingers crossed, no more injuries, and we'll get some players back. we'll get another Ashcroft in through the draft once he finally nominates Brisbane as a father-son selection. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see there. There's some academy prospects as well. There's this Marshall guy that people are talking about. I don't know a huge amount about him, but I think he's sort of a key position, sort of maybe ruck forward type operator that has got some big rap. So who knows there as well. Which would be nice.
Good. Yeah, that's great.
All right, well, we've got the Bulldogs coming up. They're playing some good footy. Their last sort of 5-6 weeks have been really good. They really pushed the Swans, and not many teams have been able to do that. They obviously toppled Collingwood just recently as well, albeit against a fairly undermanned Collingwood, it must be said, but still a pretty gutsy performance from those guys. But
it is weird. Like I didn't get as much. Like when they played the Swans, I thought they got absolutely destroyed. Maybe I turned it off like midway through the last quarter. Yeah, and they scored a lot of goals towards the end, seemingly. So, yeah, weird. I thought that game was way more one-sided than it was, but obviously my brain doesn't work.
No, it was. It looked like Swans were in control for most of it, but Bulldogs just sort of never really went away, and the Swans could have very well buried them. I mean, they beat the Giants the week before that. They smacked Richmond. They did get done in by Hawthorn, but Hawthorn's playing some bloody good footy at the moment. I think they've won 5 out of the last 6 or something like that. They smacked St Kilda, got done by Essendon, ran with Geelong for most of the match. They smacked the Eagles and the Sun. So they've had an up and down season, but their last sort of 4 or 5 weeks has been really, really solid. But I guess the good news, if you can call it that for us, is that they will be without Sam Darcy. Harms will be gone as well with a hamstring, as will... who's the other fella? Vandermeer. Looks like he did a hammy as well.
Norton's still out as well.
Norton's out. Cody Waitman's out. Riley West has also been suspended for a match. I'm not sure if they'll challenge that.
Will we see Tom Liberatore come back in?
He's been cleared.
He's been brain cells.
Yeah, he's been medically cleared to play, but I think they're playing it extra cautious with his concussion history. And he did say on the weekend he still had a few symptoms here and there, but he's been medically cleared to play. And Ed Richards as well will probably be due to coming back in that mix as well. So the Sam Darcy out is a big one because he was really, really impressive against the Pies. And between him, Jamara, and Rory Lobb, and Norton, you can probably count.
Rory Lobb.
I know. That would have been a handful for our back line. So now we've only really got Lobb and Jamara Ugle-Hagan to sort of worry about, which does free up either probably Harris. I mean, I would be inclined to put Lester on Jamara Ugle-Hagan to begin with to see how that matchup goes. Payne can take care of Lobb, and then it means Harris has got a little bit of freedom. We don't have to worry about small forwards now with Vandermeer and Waitman out. It's not to say they haven't got anyone that can do that role, but those are the two most dangerous. So, we're not going to get them at a more vulnerable stage. So hopefully we've taken this week off to really think about what we want to stand for and come out firing on Marvel Stadium.
We would want to bloody hope so, because I don't think we've beaten the Bulldogs. We might have beat them at home. We might not have beaten them in a while.
We haven't had great luck against them. I think last year, obviously, the game down at Marvel where
don't want to talk about it.
Hipwood and Joe Danaher were the worst things ever. I think we would have played maybe Ballarat the year before, and I think Norton and Tim English actually kicked a few on us. Was it last year that Jamara Ugle-Hagan kicked 5?
Yeah. So last year, the year before that, we beat him at home by 40 odd points.
Sure.
And then I think we had back-to-back games at Ballarat where we 2019 we played him in Ballarat, and McCluggage had like this amazing first half.
Yeah, that's right.
Like just playing wet weather football like an absolute wizard. And then the wind got hold of things, and Norton decided that he wanted to be like Wayne Carey for a half. So that wasn't fun. It was also really cold. I remember it was like the coldest day. And I was like, maybe I'll go to Ballarat. I'm new in Victoria. And then it was like, it's fucking cold and I'm not leaving this heater. and it wasn't a good game. So,
Of course, there was that very infamous 2021 final as well. So that's cool.
yeah. How good.
How good indeed. But like I said, this is the most vulnerable we're going to get them, so hopefully we can take full advantage of that. If nothing else, just you want to see a full-quarter effort. None of that last week where, 20 minutes here and 10 minutes there will be enough. Just sustained fucking effort for the whole game. Even if you don't win, fine. But at least give us something to be proud of and go, all right, that's fine.
Make it look like you want to.
Yeah.
That's all you can really say.
Obviously, we're going to have to worry about Marcus Bontempelli, who's putting together another great season. And, I'd hope Dunkley takes that role. I think that'll be good.
Yeah, Dunkley's good overhead.
And then, obviously, him and Adam Treloar will catch up for some cuddles and, a couple of beers because they're just good buds.
I don't like Adam Treloar, hey. Don't like him.
Surprise.
I've
listened to their podcast. I'm not going to say I listen to it every week, but every now and then I'll listen to their podcast, and he seems like an alright dude. I feel bad for him the way Collingwood shafted him.
Yeah, maybe.
No love for Ads Treloar there. He's having a good season. He's put together a really good season, and for once his hamstrings haven't bloody caved out on him as well. So, good on him there.
Yeah, as far as injuries go, that one was like, I wouldn't want to say it's like good watching, but there's something oddly satisfying about seeing a double hamstring tear at once.
There was definitely an element of humor to it. It was quite funny.
That's all we'll say about that. Yes, I am an old ogre who doesn't like a lot of people. So, maybe Jack McRae will be there. Let's not go into that.
He played a good game on the weekend as well. He kicked 2 goals. I think he kicked their first 2 goals, if I remember correctly. Anyway, neither
I
here.
swear, if Jack McRae, if I woke up one night and he was like robbing my house, they wheeled me to the police station and like, who was it? I'd be like, no idea. Can't place him. No idea. Never. Couldn't put a face to the name or a name to the face. He's just ambient circle.
They got 41 touches or something.
Yeah. No idea.
All right. Well, we have touched on some games there, but 4 memorable games between Brisbane and the Bulldogs. Is there any that stick out to you aside from the 2021 elimination final, Bailey Smith?
You put me on the spot, didn't you? No. Surely there was like some real good one back in the day. But were the Bulldogs actually any good back then?
When you say back then?
Well, I'm talking like prime years, but
nah, not really.
I guess given the fact that I can't remember it, probably is indicative that they probably weren't, and that there is not that many memorable games.
Well, this is sort of one of the one. This is falling into the danger of what the Brisbane Lions potentially are now. Is in the late 2000s where it would all belong to Geelong and St Kilda. Like the Bulldogs were a really good team and probably made finals consistently, and no one remembers them because Geelong, St Kilda. But obviously the 2009 elimination final against Carlton will go down in the annals of Brisbane Lions history.
But a week later, we didn't play very well.
But a week later, we got smacked by the Bulldogs, and no one remembers that.
That was, funnily enough, that was the only game I actually do remember.
Yeah.
Because I think I was very newly 18.
Yeah.
And I think I went to... What's that place just near the Gabba that, like, had the Lions Den? Not the Pineapple Hotel, the other way.
The Chalk?
Kind of towards... Yeah, the Chalk.
Yeah, no longer exists.
I think I went there, and it was the first time I went there, and I was like, cool, this is going to be great. I'm like, I'd been and watched, like, some Premier League and been to the pub, and it was, like, buzzing. So I went to watch the Lions play in a final, It's like 3 people there.
Yep.
It was not good. That's all I have to say about that. So aside from that, no other memorable games. The only other one I can probably think of is maybe like early Fagan, maybe like round 5, 2017, where I think we went like 7 goals straight up.
Wow.
And then lost.
I do remember as well, 2012, that year where I think we finished on 10 wins, but both our games against the Bulldogs, because they were pretty poor at that stage as well, we won by like 10 goals each, and it was just littered with Daniel Rich just draining goals from outside 50. So we played them at Marvel Stadium in round 13, and we won by 60 points. And then we played them, I think, in the very last round of the year as well. That's right, at the Gabba, and we won by 67 points. And it was just full of Daniel Rich.
Daniel Rich highlights.
Yeah. And then I remember the next year, because I was full of confidence there, and then 2013 we won the pre-season cup. I think we were the last team to win it in that format against Carlton, and we had the Bulldogs round 1, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to play the Bulldogs. We smacked them like last year, 10 goals apiece both times we played them. We've just won the pre-season cup. We're looking good. And then we came out and Bulldogs kicked the first 6 goals of the game. At halftime, it was 10 goals, 5 to 3 goals, 10. They ended up winning by 70 points. And I was like, well, that's not what I expected.
No good at that point in time, really. That fabled 2013.
Oh, yes.
So the one I'm thinking about was we lost by 32 points, but they were the reigning premiers. This is when accuracy was not an issue. 14 goals, 6 to the Lions. We were 5 goals straight, and we were... So we kicked 12 goals in the first half to their 5, and they came back to win quite handsomely. But it was just a bit like, because it was Fagan's 5th game as coach, and to play against a reigning premier and not look like shit was actually quite like, well, maybe we can do this. Or maybe this is going somewhere. So that was cool. That's the only one I remember.
Lovely. I love how neither of us have got a win to talk about. Aside from those 2012 wins, the most memorable ones have been when they've either smacked us, ended our season in a final, whether it be by a lot or by a point. So, yeah, how good.
I think that might even have been McCluggage's first game.
Ah, yeah.
One that I'm mentioning. Just trying to get a little bit of a read on that one. No, he played the week before, so forget that. Let's not worry about it. How good. It's weird because, as I said, we played him like 2 years ago at the Gabba, and I have no recollection of that happening. Joe Danaher kicked like 4 goals.
Yeah, no, I don't remember. I vaguely remember it, but not really.
I don't remember it, like at all. There's nothing happening. Probably Josh Dunkley played, which he was another one who I wouldn't, if he was committing crimes, wouldn't know how to report him back then. Now I know what he looks like. He's got a weird, goofy face. But, So, Bulldogs, much like Jack McRae, whole lot of fucking nothing.
Yeah, sure. That brings us to something that you've been wanting to do for the last couple of weeks, the shallow/deep dive on the Brisbane Lions 2024 season, and a comparison you want to make. And this is going to be thanks to Crisp Communications, because we've got no questions. So Crisp Communications is going to bring you this shallow deep dive from Patrick here. Crispcoms.co if you want to get yourself a free Brisbane Lions Fancast sticker. These guys are making it possible. They're also fantastic when it comes to getting your business the marketing that it needs and deserves. All right, 2024 Brisbane Lions reminds you of what?
Well, firstly, I just want to apologise to Chris Communications for this awful segment that's about to happen. So my thoughts is that it kind of, the season, can't even get my words out, this is a hot start, is reminding me a little bit of the 1998 wooden spoon year. Now, I'm kind of going a fair bit on hearsay because I was only about 6 or 7 at the time. So you're looking back and you're listening to things that are said, particularly taking elements of Jonathan Brown's on the couch, not on the couch, open mic interviews that are saying that his dad somehow convinced him to join.
That's right.
The Lions the year after, rather than signing
straight to Hawthorn,
non-compete, because we got the number 1 pick at the end of that year. And he opted to commit to them for a whole year to wait to play for the Mighty Lions, which I think all of us are very glad that he did. But his old man said, they've got a pretty good list. Lee Matthews is about to head up. Now, that's one point of contention that, is probably worth talking about. But they've had a lot of injuries. And that was the year where Alistair Lynch struggled quite handsomely with chronic fatigue. You can read more about that in his biography, which I have not read, but I believe I have somewhere.
I've got 2 copies of it if someone wants one.
Well, fair enough. 2 copies. Are they both signed?
Neither of them are signed.
Why have you got 2?
Don't worry about it.
Okay. And also, Michael Voss travelled to the West and had a very bad time.
Yes.
An extraordinarily bad time. So I'm not saying that those 2 were the 2, but they were both the co-captains, I believe, at the time. So when you got no co-captains, you got no love. And I mean, imagine if Harris Andrews and Lachie Neale were missing. Thank God they're not, but there are plenty of other guys that are missing. But there's also some elements of it was Luke Power, Simon Black's first year. And I think given injuries to certain players, there are some big names. Craig Lambert played 3 games, and I think that was his last season. Or maybe he might have played next one, but he played barely any footy. I believe Richard Champion also missed quite a lot, and he was an All-Australian fullback, not at the time, but in kind of recent memory. And particularly just the nature of that season being wedged. We played in a preliminary final 2 years before that, and then we played in a prelim the following year. So shit can derail pretty quickly and then come back online pretty quickly. And it's the sort of thing that having injuries and stuff like that and allowing Luke Power and Simon Black to get some games under their belt to kind of just kickstart their career going forward. I just thought there was some similarities. I don't know, what do you think?
Are you saying that Bruce Reville is going to be the next Simon Black? That's what you're saying, isn't it? No, I do understand the parallels you're drawing here as well. Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely some similarities, especially when it comes to, the injuries is just a big one, and maybe it's me just being I need something to blame here, and injuries will do. So it's all injuries' fault.
Well, let's put it in perspective this way. So these are players that were premiership players playing in that team at the time. So we've got Ashcroft, Darryl White, Chris Scott, Nigel Lappin, Brad Scott, Sean Hart, Ackermanis, Craig McRae, Lepich, Bradshaw, Lynch, Chris Johnson, Michael Voss, Luke Power, Simon Black, Clark Keating, Tim Nodding, Bo McDonald. That's 18, I think I counted 18. Yeah. 18 players that ended up winning premiership or premierships with the club. There's a fair bit of bloody chaff in the middle there. And I think our team is far less chaff, to be honest, because we don't have Trent Bartlett running around.
No.
You know who that is, don't you?
I do. Of course I do.
I got no idea. I don't know how you do it.
It's called not having any other hobbies or interests.
But it's they played a lot of football, and a lot of those guys did, and obviously there were some that didn't, because obviously Michael Voss died and came back with a cybernetic leg. But there was plenty of things. There was new players, and if you look, you go forward the following season where we made a preliminary final. You've got Simon Black being targeted and punched out because they were he's really good, and we got to stop this guy. So things can change pretty quick. Obviously, getting Jared Malloy out of the team was quite handy for various reasons, particularly in the two-way trade situation. But the bones were there.
Yep.
And if you imagine, because that team were probably also made up of people that played in a preliminary final in 1996. So it's they can just have an off year and they can just have a terrible time with injury, and it's not super reflective of their like baseline status as players. So maybe there's an element of like, not we should go easy on the people that are playing poorly, but they won't be poor forever. But maybe there are some bad eggs that have to go. And maybe there's a certain element of revitalization that has to happen.
Now, one thing that I guess can't be overlooked in that whole scenario is that in 1999, Lee Matthews came in. So if we're drawing the same, parallels and conclusions here, it would mean that we would have a change of coach at the end of this year. And I'm definitely on record as saying I'm not keen for that to happen. There'd be very few people that I would sort of go, yep, all right, I'm happy to make that change. But until then, I'm sticking with Fags. I've said that this year is a free kick, and I'm going to judge him on the performances of next year. So that's obviously a very big difference in the scenarios there as well. And I guess over the last couple of weeks, I'm sensing that you're a bit more open to a change of coaching personnel.
I think I had been open to it for a while, providing it was the right person.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not keen to just change it because changing it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good way to do business. And it's also not a good way to do business in other sports and things like that. There's been some utterly insane things going on in the world of soccer with managerial changes and things like that, particularly at a certain German city. If any of that means anything to anyone. Fella Brooksy, who got relegated in the Premier League in England, winds up coaching Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
Like one of the big, and it's kind of his first big job. And it's sort of like, why? And it's because they'd already fired the guy that was already coaching them, who replaced another guy that they fired because, it's just like you're creating problems for yourself. So I'm very much not a fan of like, just throw them out and get like me to do it. No, not a chance. Are you out of your mind? Like, if the right person comes up, and if Chris Scott decides to go, I've had enough and I want to go to Brisbane, I really enjoyed my glow up there in COVID, fine, take him. Maybe that's better. But yeah, I'm not willing to sort of just take a punt on like some schmuck.
Yeah. I guess the schmucks you're referring to are like the Daniel G and Syracuse's who have been up to their eyeballs in senior coaching jobs for a while and been in the system for long enough and just need that spot. And you never know. It's like the next Adam Kingsley could be out there, or Craig McRae or whatever, but it could also not be. So it's
I think Craig McRae is a bit more of an anomaly in terms of like he hasn't really had a non-linear progression. He's just bolted.
Yeah.
Kingsley's had a little bit of like like going up and downs a little bit. And I just think like we don't necessarily need someone that's like an experimental. We need someone that's like good to go if they're good to go. And that's what Lee Matthews was in 99. He was good to go. He was a proven guy that could win premierships. That was very well respected. And I think probably more than anything, the level of respect is the thing that kind of seems to be lacking, because it's like, yep, Fagan has done a lot for the players, and maybe there's a lack of edge there. I don't know. I'm not in the four walls, and I'm not going to pretend to know what's happening in the four walls. I'm not AFL 360. But it feels like, we've said it. Fagan was great down on the bench, in his earlier years, because he was able to kind of like, shoot at the players and shoot at the young players and get them doing the right things. And then when he went up to the box in last year, I thought that was probably he had some far better coaching performances. And him coming back at ground level is just indicative that they're not doing the right things.
Yeah.
Particularly early on in the season. Now it's kind of a case of, but he doesn't really talk that much to the players. So it's a hard thing to kind of measure.
It is. And there's still plenty of footy left in 2024 to see. We'll probably be sitting here in 13, 14, 15 weeks' time, maybe thinking about this in a completely different respect. So it's just been it's definitely been a strange start to the year. It's not the start that anybody expected, Lions fans and football fans in general. But yeah, there's time to pick up the pieces and make something of it, I suppose.
Of course, there's still a season's never really dead unless you let it be dead. And I think the players would be pretty remiss to make that the case. But who knows? Maybe they just wanted a year off. You don't get one. Harris Andrews' words of going again did not ring true in some of their ears. So, which is a bit of a shame because I thought it was a very admirable thing to say on grand final day when he probably wasn't feeling up to it. But,
I've forgotten about that.
Bizarre.
That's made me sad again.
Yeah, well.
Oh, well. Fingers crossed. It all starts next weekend, taking on the Bulldogs at Marvel Stadium. And then hopefully we can launch from there and see what we see. Welcome back Will Ashcroft and get some games into him. Still produce, expose some of the younger kids to AFL level footy. And hopefully we've got some memorable games to come out of the back end of the season. I still think we've got some surprise wins in us that we'll remember.
Yeah, and we've got, the Beacon of Light to debut at some point and the Not Craven. So it's going to be great. There's cult heroes everywhere in this team at this point in time. Let's make them actual heroes.